Hello summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Saskio and I'll be running you through the upcoming changes for patch 11.18. In our preview, we mentioned which champions were receiving changes, but now we have the numbers. This next patch is huge with countless champions receiving buffs, as well as a few necessary competitive nerfs. That said, let's hop into the content, but make sure to hit that sub button so you don't miss any other videos like this. Before we even talk about balance changes though, it's crucial that we talk about the money makers. We all love skins, and Riot is giving us a throwback with some revamped pentakill skins. The legendary heavy metal band is back, and we have pentakill skins for Karthus, Kayle, Mordekaiser, Olaf, Sona, Yorick, and even one for Viego. Finally, Hextech Tristana will also be available next patch. Check those skins out and let's run through the balance next. We'll first start with system buffs. No system nerfs are expected, but things can always change. The first buff is for Predator. Currently underused, the rune is receiving a huge buff to make it easier to use. Its ramp up time is being reduced from 1.5 to 1 second, and the bonus movement speed going up from 45% to 60%. It's not only going to be easier to use, it'll also be stronger with the increased movement speed. Next is the buff for Umbral Glaive. The price is going down from 2600 to 2400, and the lethality is going down from 12 to 10. While it does lose a bit of lethality, 2400 gold is dirt cheap and makes the item much easier to fit into any early game build. Overall, it does make the item much more gold efficient than before. Moving forward, we have the champion changes, and there's a lot of them. If this season has been rough, don't give up because the meta is definitely going to progress heavily with the sheer number of changes we're about to receive. You can also hit up a coach over at ProGuides.com that can help you build a strong mindset and game plan to improve and hit your rank goals. Saskio. Next patch is a great one to start grinding hard. Now let's talk about the changes. Starting with the top lane, we have a nerf for Camille. While this wasn't originally planned, Riot realized that nerfs to other top laners would leave Camille too strong. Thus, she's getting nerfed alongside some of her supposed counter picks. Her passive is receiving a huge nerf in the early game, with the cooldown going up from 16 to 10 seconds based on the level to 20 to 10 seconds. Next is a nerf to Jace, who's actually seeing plenty of competitive play. While he still may underperform a bit in solo queue, he's without a doubt popular and a go-to blind pick for many top laners. His AD is going down from 54 to 52. Minor, but still an impactful nerf. Renekton is in a similar situation where he's highly contested in competitive play. Taking into consideration his presence, he's receiving a small nerf that shouldn't have too much of an impact on him in solo queue. His stun duration on Empowered W is going down from 1.5 to 1 second. A big change coming up is for Mundo. You might consider this a jungle change, but we'll list it as a top lane change because it impacts him overall, not exclusively as a jungler. First, the jungle change is that his Q's max damage against monsters is going up from 300 to 500 to 350 to 650. His ultimate is up for the more significant change. However, instead of healing for 20% missing health, he gains 15 to 25% of his missing health as bonus HP, and the max healing is going down from 20 to 70% to 20 to 60%. If you build a Titanic Hydra, this is going to be a massive DPS boost when you're committed to a fight. Gangplank's early game was destroyed by the last set of changes, so he's on the list for strictly buffs next patch. His HP is going up from 540 to 570, and HP per level from 82 to 90. Another cool change coming up is for Singed. When he uses his ult, his poison will apply grievous wounds. This means he'll no longer need to purchase a Morellonomicon. You know, just in case you were the type of player to make adaptive purchases. Instead, you can purchase a stronger offensive item in its place, or get even tankier than before. Finally, Urgot will receive a buff to his Q. The cooldown is going down from 12 to 8 seconds to 10 to 8 seconds, and the mana cost will be reduced from 80 to 70. That covers the top lane, so let's hop into the jungle next. Lee Sin remains at the top even after some previous nerfs. Once again, the king of the jungle needs a nerf, and his base AD will be reduced from 70 to 68, hurting his early game pressure as well as his clear speed. Taliyah hasn't been touched in a minute, and she's finally receiving a change next patch. It's a buff. Q-cast on Work Ground will refund 50% of the cooldown, Work Ground radius will go down from 450 to 300, and the duration is going down from 45 to 25 seconds. This makes it much easier for players to decide in the heat of the moment if they want to go for a full Q or a short one. The short duration also means that if she ends up taking a fight in a similar spot later, it's more likely the terrain will have to reset back to normal. This helps her out both as the jungler and mid laner, but more as a mid laner. Next, Zed is up for a simple but powerful jungle buff. His passive will deal 100% bonus damage to jungle monsters. That's a humongous increase in his clear speed, so watch out next patch. Before we move forward, Let me ask you the question of the day. Is there any ability you think that needs to be changed, reworked, or receive a giant balance change? My choice is Shyvana's passive. Sure, you get some bonus stats sometimes, but I don't think even players really notice it in their games. Let me know your answers in the comments below, and let's move forward with the changes. Qiyana is also receiving some changes to help her jungle. First, her base attack speed is going up from 0.625 to 0.688. Although her base health regen will go down from 1.8 to 1.5, her Q will deal 25% more damage against monsters. The last change is that her E will deal 10 less damage than before at all ranks. With the massive increase in attack speed, Qiyana's jungle clear will be much better than before, and players, there's plenty of room to experiment with her next patch. Lilia has been too strong in the top lane, rather than the jungle. This seems like an unintended result of her changes, so Riot is adjusting her to push her back where she belongs. First, her base health regen is going down from 1.5 to 0.5, and the growth from 0.75 to 0.55. Her passive large monster healing is going up from 18 to 94 to 28 to 105, and Q passive duration from 5.5 to 6.5. Finally, her E's cooldown is going down from 18 to 16. This means Lilia will have less sustain in solo lanes, but come out a bit stronger in terms of combat power. Is Rumble still a jungler? I don't ask because he's moved back to solo lanes. It's because he's not getting picked anywhere. The hype train is sadly dead, but he's up for an adjustment next patch which will probably hurt his jungling more than anything else. His overheat attack speed bonus is being changed from 50 flat to 20 to 80% based on level, and his W's cooldown is being reduced from 7.6 to 6 seconds flat. The W change is a huge buff, but unfortunately, the other adjustments will hurt early game clear speed significantly. Finally, Talon is receiving a mid lane nerf and a small jungle buff. His Q's base damage is going from 65 to 165 to 65 to 145. However, his W will deal 50% bonus damage to monsters, meaning we have another speedy assassin in the jungle next patch. Next up is the mid lane. Kog'Maw has been doing pretty well as a bot laner, but his mid lane counterpart could use some help. Next patch, his E's AP ratio is going up from 50% to 70%. I'm surprised it was that low to begin with, but regardless, it's a big buff to his scaling that players should notice after the 10-minute mark. Believe it or not, Yone is also receiving a buff. His W shielding per extra champion hit is going up from 25% to 50%. Hitting a clump of enemies will reward players ridiculously next patch. That extra survivability gives Yone players more time to look for the big plays that they want. Zoe hasn't been doing too hot this season following the various nerfs. Her E's cooldown is being reduced from 20 to 14 seconds to 16 to 12. This will likely give her that little push she needs to start succeeding again, and maybe we'll start seeing her at Worlds as a result. The last mid lane change is for Fizz. There's a big adjustment coming, but the overall theme is that he's losing burst damage for power elsewhere. His passive will provide more protection as the damage reduction will increase to 8 plus 2% of his AP. His W's on hit damage will also go up from 10 to 30 to 20 to 40. In spite of these buffs, Fizz's ultimate is receiving nerfs at each stage of its growth. Its weakest form, the Guppy, will have its damage reduced from 150 to 350 plus 80% AP to 150 to 300 plus 70% AP. Chomper's damage will go down from 225 to 425 plus 100% AP to 200 to 350 plus 85% AP. And finally, Gigalodon is down from 300 to 500 plus 120% AP to 250 to 400 plus 100% AP. This will probably feel like a big nerf to most Fizz players, and some adjustments to his playstyle will definitely be necessary after these set of changes. That's it for the mid lane, so let's talk about bot lane where Riot hopes to really diversify the meta. Aphelios is the first one up for the nerf next patch. He's been a dominant pick in competitive play this season with his popularity so high. Riot is taking the necessary measures to ensure several different marksmen are viable at the top level. Next patch, his AD is going down from 57 to 55. Ashe is also up for a nerf. She's well rounded and Riot is nerfing her early game with an increase to her W's cooldown from 14 to 4 based on ability rank to 18 to 4. The 4-second addition is huge and will make her less threatening of a lane opponent early on. Kalista is next, and her ultimate's utility is taking a hit. The knockup duration will be reduced from 1.5 to 2 seconds to 1 to 2 seconds. As a marksman that focuses on the early to mid game, this is a bigger nerf than it looks. You don't want the game to go that late as Kalista, and essentially her strongest point of the game will be weaker than before. Finally, we have a nerf for Varus, who's another dominant competitive pick. His non-champion attack speed from his passive is going down from 20% to 10, 15, and 20% at all levels, 1, 7, and 13 respectively. Also, his base AD is going down from 61 to 59. The overall theme is that a lot of these champions had their early games nerfed to make room for other marksmen to try to break into the meta. Draven is up for possibly his biggest buff up to date. His ultimate will execute the enemies that have less health than the number of League of Draven stacks he has. Stealing kills won't matter nearly as much anymore since you'll be able to farm an incredible amount of stacks and try to cheese a kill during a crucial mid-game teamfight. It also makes shutting Draven down and cutting down on those stacks much more important than before. Jinx has felt a bit weak and she's up for a buff next patch as well. Her Q's mana cost is going down from 20 flat to 16 to 20 based on level. Even a 4 cost mana reduction is significant since it's sapped from her pool every time she attacks with Fishbones. Kai'Sa has also fallen off a bit after an incredible start earlier this season. To help her break back into the meta, her E cooldown is being reduced from 16 to 12 to 16 to 10. Some extra mobility never hurts and it'll be harder to catch her out in late game teamfights. We also have a buff for Misfortune. Her ultimate will come out much stronger next patch because it now has 2 more waves of cannonballs. In other words, instead of shooting 12 to 16 waves, it'll shoot 14 to 18. Misfortune's ultimate is the defining characteristic of her gameplay. She's one of the few marksmen who relies heavily on it for teamfight DPS, and increasing the reward on it seems like a smart change. Finally, Twitch's ultimate is also up for a buff. His ultimate's AD bonus is going up from 30 to 60 to 40 to 70. The extra 10 AD should help players have a bigger impact in fights when they find the perfect angle to snipe enemies from afar. With the bot lane changes covered, let's wrap up with supports. Unsurprisingly, Thresh is still in need of a nerf. Another round of them is coming up next patch starting with a 5 MS nerf, taking him from 335 to 330. Thresh is severely impacted by this since champions that can outrun him have an easier time escaping from his Q. All they have to do is run away from him, and if Thresh can't get in range, then he won't be able to connect his hook. Next, his E's max bonus magic damage is going down from 100% to 200% AD plus 1 per soul to 80 to 200%, plus 1.5 per soul. While this does help his scaling, it's a big early game nerf where the damage arguably counts the most. Trundle's support has also been gaining a lot of popularity and Riot is nerfing it next patch. The E slow is going down from 32 to 60% to 30 to 46%. He'll still be a solid answer to tanks, but his utility is going down next patch. Karma is up for a follow-up buff after her previous changes. Her armor will be increased from 26 to 28, and her E shield will go up from 80 to 260 to 90 to 270. Believe it or not, Morgana is getting buffed. Her E's cooldown will be reduced from 26 to 18 to 24 to 16. She's always been a great answer to hard crowd control and aggressive supports, but she's currently struggling against the influx of enchanters in the bottom lane. This buff should make her an even more rewarding pick given the right circumstances. Soraka is one of the less played enchanters in spite of her growing popularity. To help her thrive, her ultimate is receiving a giant quality of life buff, clearing grievous wounds from her targets. This adds a ton of skill expression, especially during those explosive teamfights. Knowing when to purge grievous wounds from your allies and then healing them immediately after can come in clutch, especially when they'd otherwise experience a tragic death. Finally, Yuumi's passive cooldown is being reduced significantly early on. The cooldown will be lowered from 18 to 6 to 14 to 6. This means she gets to play the game and be a much more interactive champion early on. This won't matter for me since I play Yuumi with my feet, but Yuumi players will definitely be happy. Enchanters are getting so much love and the bottom lane meta is definitely up for a huge shift beginning on patch 11.18. That wraps up the upcoming changes for patch 11.18. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. Also, check out the description for a link to join our Discord. It'd be a great way to see you there. Stay safe everyone, and I wish you all the best of luck in your games.